Lord of God. Yeah, there's some great life.
Sure. So, welcome everybody. Ted Feldman, the secretary of the committee. I will be chairing tonight's meeting. Sort of a last minute change in lineup. So apologies, I am still out of town dealing with some family things. So that's why I'm on Zoom and not in the room, but glad we have this technical capability to do this. So thank you. And thank you to those who could make it in the room tonight. So as usual, we'll start with roll call. So just go around the room, state your name, and if you're a member of the committee. So as usual, we'll start with members of the committee, and then we can give a shout out to guests. So who wants to go?
I'm gonna request. The first time I think I was here, we all did like a little bike delight you've had recently, and I would love to do that again.
Okay, I totally am fine with doing that as part of interest. So a little bike delight, since I am on Long Island, I did a South Fork ride this weekend from Hampton Bays to Sag Harbor to East Hampton and came back. But thanks to a wrong turn, ended up on the wrong road that turned into a highway, and then magically made my way back, having to pass the same Tate's Bake Shop twice. So I took that as a sign from the universe that I was meant to get both my banana bread and an unplanned chipwich at the end of the ride. My recent bike light. All right, who wants to go next?
Ted, why don't you call on people to make it a real
All right.
vote?
We'll be democratic or cold calling. So Tom, if you're on there, you're the first person on the list. So
Tom Lamar, as I was collecting some blue bike stocks in Salem shortly before Halloween, I happened to hit exactly 666 hours of total blue bikes time according to the app. So very spooky hitting that in Salem just before Halloween.
cool. Thank you, Tom. Lena's not here. I already went. So Adrian, you're next on the list.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I can't get my camera onto the one that's in front of me, but I just biked home from work from Waltham and noticed how dark it is because I have not biked home yet or recently since the time change, and so I'm getting to get new bike lights because Minuteman Trail is pretty dark. I'm going to keep doing that, but probably for not too much longer if it gets a little bit colder. But it was fun. Good bike ride home.
Cool. Thank you, Adrian. And let's see who's next. Cat B.
Not here.
Not here. Okay. I don't think I saw Greg in the room, so Greg's not there. And I did Alex. So let's see who's next. Cat L. In the room.
I think that's me. If it's Catherine Lang,
Yes.
I go by Catherine. My
Apologies.
that's okay. My recent bike delight is I really like bike packing, and this year I didn't do any until October. I got my one of the year in Connecticut, where I'm from. So very nice to be outside.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Paul. I saw you
I'm
on
Paul
there.
Morgan. Paul Morgan member. Lately, I've been enjoying biking in East Boston, taking a ferry over, going on the East Boston Greenway and along the waterfront.
Cool.
Cool. Let's see who's next. Amanda.
Hello, Amanda Reichel, member. I really enjoyed my bike up Central this evening. The path was so wide and lovely that it was now looking nicer than the sidewalk for a lot of people. But we were all enjoying it.
Cool. Yay, wide bike lanes. Awesome. Maria's no longer here. And I think Ian emailed that he's in India and with the time change, time difference won't be on. So I think that's everybody for community representatives. I know we have a few ex officios both in the room and on Zoom. So let's see, I see Councillor Burnley on Zoom. So why don't we start with you, Councillor? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Of course, wish I could be there in person, and I could walk over, but a lot of things going on, as you all know. Special, I have to do a sad bike moment before I can get to the happy bike moment. That's kind of my microcosm of everything going on. So my e-bike right now, it has two inner tubes that got busted. So I've been like waiting to get my new inner tubes in the mail so I could fix them up because it's very weird, specific wheel size. But I had some vicarious bike joy recently when I ran to a friend of mine who had just come up School Street and on this like old fashioned, seemingly rickety bike. And I was like, "Oh, did you walk your bike up?" And she said, "No, it's actually electric." And I realized she had this like wheel thing inserted to the back wheel that turned her old fan 70s looking bike into like technically an electric bike. And I was like, that is just the coolest thing. And I remember when I feel like a lot of people are talking about like this is the future of bikes. We're just going to get old bikes and we're going to make them e-bikes. And I haven't seen a lot of that, but it gave me some renewed hope that everyone can get up School Street and Central Street without having like legs like Lance Armstrong.
Yes. No, e-bikes are definitely a game changer in Somerville for sure. So thank you for pointing that out, Councillor. Yay, e-bikes. Till we get those bike elevator things that they like have in some European cities. Cool. Awesome. So who's next? Viola, you're next on the list.
Yeah, Viola Augustine, not ex, yeah, officio. And I have to second Amanda. My delight is commuting up to City Hall and riding on Central Street. It's really cool. It's good to see the construction almost finished there.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Viola. See, Greg, you're next.
Greg Hannafin with Mobility. I just yesterday rode the new Summer Street protected bike lane, which I think is maybe not technically officially open, but was rideable. And so that was very exciting. Is that construction will be at least on that part of summer coming to a close soon. And yeah, it's nice to have that extra protection.
That's awesome. And that's exciting to hear that Summer Street will be done soon. I know that's a long-awaited bike lane. And, the cars lately haven't really loved sharing the road, especially uphill. So, thank you.
What is left to be done on that one?
Might be some pavement markings. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Yeah, this season they're just gonna finish some of, I think pavement is almost finished and markings. And then next year they will continue and one of the things that they didn't get to is a separate bike lane in front of the dog, like the Museano Park. And I don't know what else up Summer Street.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna. Now you caught me looking at the agenda to see was that in one of the city updates? So, glad we got to cover that one. Thank you. All right. Let's see. I think Eric is the only ex officio left, and I don't see him in the room or on Zoom. So, with that, we can. I'm sorry. Did I miss somebody?
No,
No.
covered.
Cool. So we have a couple. I see Lena. Lena joined it, but is listed as an attendee. So welcome, Lena. Can we promote you to panelist. All right, Lena, we're doing intros. So I think tonight is a favorite fall bike moment thus far this month or
Oh,
whenever.
okay, cool. Lena Webb, Vice Chair of the committee, and I ride from West Somerville to Waltham and commute on the various sides of the Paul Dudley White bike path, whatever, like by the river, through the woods. And it's just every year, it's amazing because you get like a complete blank, not just like the trees changing colors, but the leaves that the trees like leave on the path are like these intense, beautiful rainbows. And just, the warm weather is not, I don't love it, but like it does make for some of like very like warm and really like warm and comforting bike rides.
That's true. And some great bike photos. Yeah, that's to me always one of the best parts about biking in the fall is that you get to take in the surroundings without, dealing with the heat of summer too much. Cool. And I think we also have a community member to welcome here on the attendee list. Kylie, welcome. Wanna do your
Hi.
intro?
Hi, I'm Kylie. I'm a student in Tufts Urban and Environmental Policy program. So I'm excited to be here and to listen.
Cool. We're excited to have you. So thanks. Is this Mark Chase's class? I brought you here.
No, this is actually for foundations with Lori Goldman and Penwell.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, welcome. So I
Thank
think
you.
that covers everybody I see for intros. So welcome everybody. Acting secretary, actually according to the list would be Alex tonight. Since he is not here, I have been taking minutes on my end to fill in. I guess I did not hear him, did not know that he was not going to be here tonight. So, cool.
Ted, are you fine taking minutes as chair, or do you want to assign another note taker?
Do we have a volunteer? If somebody is willing, I wouldn't mind sharing the responsibilities.
Ted, I'm fine taking minutes since you're chairing.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Great. So that takes care of acting secretary. So our first vote of the evening, approval of meeting minutes, since we do have a quorum of members now, and they were sent out with the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the October meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Awesome. Thank you, Lena.
Seconded.
Have a second. Was that Paul or Tom?
That was me, which I will note for this month's minutes.
Cool. All right. All in favor, please make your vote known either by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Cool. So I don't think.
Can I interject briefly? Chatted with Alex. He says he's gonna try to be here ASAP.
Okay. Sure.
So he does plan to join.
Okay. Great.
Cool. Anyway.
So I did not hear any dissenting opinions. So other than I think the usual abstentions, I think that passed unanimously. Great. Thank you. So the next item is our upcoming year's acting secretary list. So I took care of that this afternoon. I was then reminded, I was aware that Mark had left the committee, and I think we also need to take one more person off the list for 2025, I think Maria. So we now have 13 months with 13 members, so I think we should be good, and I will just slot, let me take a look. Let's see.
Greg Eli is in Greece and he may be back by that time, but I don't know if you might want to push him further in the year. I don't know.
Okay, so the list I have has Greg in August of 2025. So he might be away in August.
I don't know when they return.
Okay,
Do you wanna share your screen? Do you have a?
sure, absolutely. So I sent out the link. I think I saw that you all, everyone, including our new members, now has access to Box. So that link should work for you. Please try it out. If for some reason it doesn't, let us know. Let me find the share thing. There we go. This is gonna make me sign into Zoom again. Let me see if I can do this without. Would somebody be able to pull up the, do this with my camera? All right, there we go. Cool. All right, so you can see Zoom. And okay, so here's the list I have.
I just pulled them up for convenience instead.
Perfect. So yeah, this is what is now in Box. So I'll have to redo January of 2025. The way I did this basically was put all the months in, put everybody, and then use the random number generator and sampled everybody's names. So I will fix January
So Ted,
2025.
Ted, we mentioned it last time, Sari is no longer a member either.
Oh, sorry, not Maria. Sorry is no longer a member. So I will fix September 2025. Sorry, I'm messing up names.
Yeah, and Maria, you also want to put at the end of the list because she's in class, so she takes class. So I don't know if she will be attending in January.
Alrighty, so I will put Maria at the end, making notes for myself. And we need to replace, sorry. So if we have a volunteer, cool, amongst you, you don't have to let me know now, else I'll randomly select somebody again. But basically, yeah, this was randomly sampled and I wanted to go over this now, make you aware of it. You know, it's not set in stone. It's, you know, just part of our charter responsibilities of being members of the committee is being acting secretary when called upon. So it is totally allowable to change that month if it doesn't work for you now, or, you know, when it gets closer, you find that something comes up, life happens. So just be aware of it and, you know, reach out as soon as you can, and we'll find somebody to swap and take your place. So cool. So that's really all I have to say about that. We'll go through and so typically after our minutes are approved, I'll take them out of the draft folder in Box and then put them in the regular minutes folder. So if you're new to this, you can always take a look at the examples from the previous months of the year there, to get a sense of level of detail on what you have to do. And of course, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about it. So thank you. All right. So with that, I think that's everything on the meeting minutes. So moving right along. Sorry, did anybody have any questions about that or anything? No? Cool. Great. All right, then moving on to upcoming outreach events. I know there are a few upcoming rides. We're getting into holiday season, so holiday themed events or service. Anything anybody wanted to cover?
Illumination tour.
Hey, Alex. Cool. Do we have, is there, let me see if I can find a link. Unless somebody wants to drop it in the chat already. Do we know when that will be?
No, I just wanted to highlight it for the minutes, and then we can provide it links probably afterward. But it's probably the most notable winter one for those who haven't been part of it. Goes on the same tour that the walking tour and the trolley tour I think go on, but just on bike. Large family event for winter cycling.
Cool. It is a great event. There's always a few opportunities for volunteers to either lead or shepherd folks at the end of the group, and it's a lot of fun. So.
Is Somerville Arts Council the host of that?
It seems that way. It's listed as on the 14th of 23, so I assume that's just a typo. So we'll assume the 14th at 5 p.m.
Put my calendar.
Cool.
Actually, on the subject of the Illuminations tour, I understand that conversations have just started among Brian Postlewaite and some other folks who have been involved in planning before. So I know last year, I think Greg Ely ended up volunteering from the bike committee to help lead that ride, which I hear went fantastically. And I think there is an opening for a. I don't know if it's been discussed with Greg yet, but overall, there's definitely an opening for folks interested in leading or otherwise volunteering with that ride.
Cool. So I think some follow-up would be, we'll get some more information. Brian and Greg are both great, so we can all get in touch with Greg. If people have questions for Brian, I think we can connect you. So.
Ted, as we just said, Greg is in Greece, so I don't think he's going to be in the Illumination tour.
Fair. My apologies. So we can reach out. I can reach out to Brian, who's a Somerville neighbor, and see what he's looking for in terms of help.
Yeah, let's figure that out, and we can email the committee to find anybody interested in volunteering that and share what the expectations are, and hopefully we can find somebody to lead that soon.
Cool. Sounds like a plan. Any other upcoming events?
Somerville Bike Kitchen is hosting Thanksgiving on November 24th. Not to be confused with Bike to the Sea in Malden's Thanksgiving, which is, I think, 16. I'm not sure. But SBK here is hosting Thanksgiving, and it is alley cat style race or ride throughout the city of Kimberville and also Boston, and you pick up food along the way from grocery stores, which all goes to probably the Somerville Homeless Coalition, but maybe somewhere else. So it's a food drive and fun ride or race if you want to be speedy.
What was the date?
Cool.
Sunday, November 24th.
So the Sunday right before Thanksgiving week.
Yeah,
Cool. That sounds like an awesome event. A lot of fun.
it is fun. Last year I won the women's division, but that's because it was, I don't know, in an alley cat, you like, are you familiar with that form of ride? It's cool. In an alley cat, it's a type of race where they say, 1, 2, 3, go, and you open up a paper with all the stops you have to hit. And there's no route, so it's up to you to decide what's the most efficient way to get to all these stops. So it's fun if you are a math nerd, and if you have a particular knowledge of where the biking is good in your city,
Yeah.
it really is helpful. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I think traditionally alley cats grew out of the bike messenger world, which is how the multiple stops and optimizing your route came about.
And again, but Bike to the Sea out of Malden is also doing the same kind of thing the weekend prior, if that suits you.
Awesome. Great. Lots of fun holiday rides and events. That's cool. Any others out there? Yeah. Cool. You know, and it doesn't have to be outreach, you know, if there are you know, ongoing campaigns. As I said, we've often supported, you know, bike happenings in other cities as well. So, or bike policy in other cities as well. So feel free to include those. Great. So that is, if nobody has any other events, that covers our logistics and business updates. And we can move on to some feedback on projects that are currently accepting public comment. So I know that we had previously weighed in on some of these. So Greg, I think that was included in the updates you sent out, or the city's response. So we'll go over the Elm Beacon and Western Pearl, but I think West Broadway we had previously given feedback.
Hey Ted, since you're sharing, would it be all right if I shared my screen and I can pull up the
Sure.
slides for reference as we go through it?
Yeah.
And as you
So
facilitate. Awesome.
yes, thank you.
One moment.
So I think there were the slides, and then I had cobbled together some feedback on these projects for specifically Elm Street is a long-standing, has a lot of history with a lot of plans around it. So we've created some feedback based on that. And for Western Pearl, that was more community, that was more driven by sort of the existing or new concepts. So.
What's going on?
I think, Tom, you were going to share your screen, right?
Yeah. Can you all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can see it in the room.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah, I figured as we go through the project one at a time, I can like share the slides for reference as we discuss. But I don't know how you want to facilitate this, Ted, if people should like go around, or if anyone, or starting with Elm Beacon, if anyone should just chime in with whatever they'd like to focus on.
Yeah, I think going around the room makes sense. And then I can, if you have the Google Doc, we could save that for the end, but this way we'll get everybody's unbiased feedback first.
I have a question. I think we haven't met since there was the public event right at Elm Beacon. I don't think we met since then. But there was that event. I did not go. Like, any interesting things from people, particularly the reduced parking on Elm? Like, how is that going over? Just curious people's thoughts so far.
I was not at that event, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind.
Yeah, I couldn't make it either, so
Lots of comments in support. Call outs for different conditions at different, very micro neighborhood sort of comments around like very specific things. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was very specific call outs and wanting a safer way to get around for the most part of what I heard.
The so mobility for each of our projects for like the different community outreach phases, we put together a community outreach report. So once we're in like phase 1 of outreach for Elm Beacon now, so once that is completed, I believe we'll compile all of the feedback that we've heard and put it in a report and publish that on the website. So like all the key or not just key, all the feedback that we've heard at the public event will be made public for people to see.
Cool. Yeah, and Catherine, you know that the recordings of the event are also uploaded.
Oh, no,
So
cool.
you can just like, if it's a,
That's right.
you know, if it's an online event, we do that, and obviously if it's like a walk or something, you'd have to wait for that report.
Yeah, because that was a virtual meeting, right?
Yeah, the first one usually is.
cool. Yeah, so Tom, if you want to pull up our notes, I think on Elm, can go through a few things. I think one question that I had looking at this was, would White Street be in the scope of what we're thinking about here, since we've long wanted to make that contraflow route for bikes and sort of facilitating connections to Somerville Ave.
That isn't, White Street isn't in the scope of the project right now, but it doesn't hurt to share that feedback.
I'd love to add a plus. Use it as contraflow, so.
Cool. I don't know if that ever made it to the point of going in front of the traffic commission. Lena, you might be able to answer that question. But that is more of kind of just a traffic commission signage piece to really do that. It's great to hear that there is still support for removing parking. You know, I think one point in looking at our sets of plans, so basically Brian Postlethwaite had given some thought to this back when he was actually the chair of this committee. And then Mike Tremblay sort of revised Brian's plans a little bit. And looking at the public documents, it seems like, you know, those were also inspired by some of the, you know, this work that's done by generations of OSPCD. So, and SBAC. So I think another question was, you know, are there plans to redo the daytime parking study? The previous one had suggested that parking was actually underutilized on much of this road.
I believe that mobility is developing a parking study. I don't have the details, but I think our team is
Cool.
working on doing something. I don't know if it is replicating the previous effort. But that will,
Yeah.
once it's all completed, that will be made available for everyone just to see the results.
Cool.
Ted, sorry, just to check, was there a specific Google Doc that you wanted me to be sharing, or?
Yes, I can send you the link. It was
Okay.
engineering and eval notes. Let me shoot this to you real fast, Tom. Thank you. So basically, I think one point that we were thinking about on Elm Street would be to reduce, so a little bit of background, but Elm has some of the widest travel lanes in the city, actually, believe it or not. So ideally, if we could reduce those to 10.5 feet in each direction, that would be great. Standard's probably going to end up around 11 and reduce the parking to 6.5. That would give us plenty of space to put in some nice facilities and maintain ADA spaces on the street. Cool.
Can you zoom that
Mhm.
way in?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you. Oh, gosh.
Cool. Yeah, so I think one of the things that we were thinking about is ideally having a bike lane in each direction. And I think another major focus area would be re-envisioning the cross section of Beach Street. So let me see if I can. So if you can pull up Nate's plans, Tom, that it's linked there, and it's slide.
It looks like I don't have access to this document, Ted.
Oh no. All right, let me see if I can.
Where's Beach Street?
That's that
So
big
Beach
one.
Street is the one right in front of Ace Wheelworks. Is that huge
Oh, yeah,
intersection?
Yes,
A good time, that intersection.
yeah.
So Tom and Ted, do you have like what the city proposed or any visuals? Like I actually am not so familiar with the project myself and
So I
couldn't
think
give-
the most recent documents were kind of just soliciting feedback, right? I don't recall there being a conceptual plan in that. So I have the links to what we have talked about previously in this, as well as the links that Greg sent out.
Okay,
I see there are some conceptual plans within the slides that were presented along Elm Street. So maybe it would make sense to go through these one at a time. I think there's some sections for Elm Street, then Somerville Ave, etc. So we could try to briefly go through those, see what issues members want to highlight. Does that work?
Sure. Do you want to go ahead and share those, Tom?
Yeah, sounds good. So walking through at least my read of this, I see the Elm Beacon overall is a quick build project covering parts of Elm Street, Somerville Ave, Mossland, and Beacon Street. So quick build, but also including traffic signal changes, as I understand it. So on Elm Street, which this section currently either has no bike lanes or some sections have one painted bike lane in only one direction. The change would be to remove a lane of parking in one direction in order to fit in bike lanes. Quick build bike lanes, unidirectional, protected by flex posts. It looks like one of the questions on here for feedback in general is which side parking would remain on, or if it would alternate or anything like that. Anything folks want to emphasize on Elm Street for feedback? I think there was interest in nudging for narrowing the Beach Street intersection as much as possible.
Yeah. I agree with that, because the Beach Street intersection is also really hard to cross as a pedestrian, because that thing is so long.
Yes, I agree. It's long and it's at times confusing, and some of the sight lines are not great for turning vehicles.
Yeah. One other thing is thinking about Elm Street and the Porter Square parking lot, the Star Market parking lot. Like, the cars are supposed to exit on the Star Market side of Elm Street. And then they can both exit and enter on the other end of the parking lot a little bit further down on Elm Street. If you can, on the White Street side. And I don't know, I feel like if you are unfamiliar with that area, or if you're on a bike and just like not thinking about it, being like, oh my God, a car is coming out. Or then you get to the White Street one and, oh my God, a car is both coming out and also turning in. And I feel like the few times I've driven a car there, I've like forgotten which side I can enter and exit. And maybe that's private property and it's like not our business, but maybe some sort of signage that's like, it's a very frequent car intersection and the directions that the cars will move.
Unidirectional orders, one in, one out, and not like, it's confusing.
Yeah, I find it a little confusing to anticipate when I'm on a bike.
I think that's good feedback. That may be Cambridge. I'm not sure where the line is there, because the plaza itself, I believe, is in Cambridge. But the sidewalk is maybe ours.
Yeah, it's a strange, and I don't actually know
Yeah.
if there is any
And then there's-
clarity on it completely.
Yeah, and then there's the bus stop in the middle of those two entrances and exits. So if you like swerve out to accommodate, I mean, we're gonna change it with this, but like at the moment, you swerve out perhaps to accommodate the bus. And then there's a car turning in, and also, oh my God, a car turning out, and it's just, our beautiful city is chaotic. That's
Yes.
one example.
And I think something that is noted in those slides, just context, Elm is in the bike network as a protected bike lane in both directions. Mossland is a neighbor way, just FYI. So I think one of the things, if you're new to looking at these plans, is to think about sort of network connectivity where people are going. Obviously, this is a big connector between Davis Square and the T station and Porter. So just in terms of where people want to get to, and I think maybe another question for folks, if you use this route regularly, where or what do you find stressful if this is a road that you've biked on a lot?
As far as what side the parking remains on, might wanna, in front of the Kennedy School, might wanna keep it on the Kennedy School side for pickups and drop-offs.
Sure, and I think that that would jive with kind of the discussion we had last month about the bridge in front of the bridge by Argenziano on Western Washington. That's useful. So that's a great point. I think we talked about the chaotic parking lot exit, so I appreciate that. beach, just, really narrowing the cross section at beach as much as possible. Because I find that's a stressful intersection.
Mhm.
Great. All right, I'll move to the next section. Again, just a visual of Elm Street, but I think we can conceptualize what that would look like. So next up is a section of Somerville Ave on the map here. So this is just after, for context, this is just after you've turned onto Somerville Ave from Porter, and you go past a relatively long right turn lane currently before you have the opportunity to turn onto Beacon. And currently, as shown here, the right turn lane is to the right of the bike lane.
Mhm.
And it looks like the anticipated condition here has protected bike lanes in both direction, with the bike lane going eastbound along Somerville Ave being to the right of the turn lane. So presumably bikes continuing straight would have a separate bike signal to avoid conflict with the right turning cars. Curious for people's reactions or suggestions to this intersection.
I have two thoughts. One that's not bike related, and I put in my survey comments, is this part of Somerville Ave is so hot in the summer because there's not many trees, and if you're on the car wash side of the street, by where in this picture there's the fence. Oh my God, it's so hot. Like there's just nothing covering you. So I put in the survey like benches, because people are also carrying their Star Market groceries or their Market Basket groceries. And I always see people just like really slugging along there. Same goes to the winter. And then my bike comment is, maybe there's an answer for this, but in this world of Somerville Avenue, if you're arriving on this from Mossland, as many people do, would there be a break in the bollards on the train side of the street? So if you want to turn into that bike lane, you want to cross the street to then go down Beacon, would you like have to weave into the bollards as you do in other places, like on Holland, for example? Or
The turn coming out of Mossland.
coming out of Mossland and you want to go left toward Beacon Street, would you have to like find the gap in the bollards, or would there be some bigger space where you could just easily come in?
Gotcha. That sounds like the kind of thing where whether or not the city has an answer now, we should definitely include that as a suggestion in our comments. And that makes a lot of sense.
I experienced that with the bollards on Holland. I come off out of Simpson Street, which is like just north of Dave's Pasta, and I take a left and I like find a gap in the bollards, and it's okay for me. But if I had like a bigger bike, or if I was perhaps a less confident rider, it could be a little sticky.
Yeah, at this point, there's no design yet, so yeah, this is the time to, if, like if you have a preference one way or the other, this is the, time to express that. So it sounds like your preference is for having a larger
I guess so.
opening.
Basically a clear.
Yeah, like this is where you should come in. And in fact, you can come in, you should do it here. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because making that turn, there are almost always conflicts with cars, or cars that end up in the bike lane. Trying to make that right from Somerville Ave onto Beacon Street, in my experience.
All those trees died because of gas leaks.
Oh,
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, the gas leaks.
Yep.
This was the trees on Somerville Ave.
By the train track.
Yeah, on the
Okay.
car wash side.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
And then I'll add for myself. I really like the suggestion for Catherine's suggestion for leaving room for bikes turning from Mossland onto Somerville Ave. And I know sometimes there are trade-offs where a wider gap that is easier for bikes is also big enough for a car to fit into.
Totally.
Though thankfully here, I think there's very little demand for a car to double park anywhere. So that'll be less of a concern. So that makes a lot of sense.
I want to add in some praise for right now there's a really long walk signal at both the Elm Street Somerville and the Somerville Beacon intersections, and really appreciate that.
I could be wrong, but I think that changes to signal timing could be on the table for this project. So that's good feedback.
They're both really good.
Could you say the signal timing concern again, Catherine? Just want to make sure I capture that for the minutes.
It wasn't a concern, it was praise. They're both scrambles and really long. Sufficiently long.
Yes, so I'm looking at the signal timing changes, which is slide 32 of the Summer voice deck, and signal changes on Somerville Ave at Mossland, at Beacon and Elm, and at Elm Street, at the intersection of Cedar and Mossland. So that's definitely useful information.
Great. With that, I'll pull up the Beacon Street slide. So for reference, this is Beacon Street just south of Somerville Ave. There is a right turn onto Oxford, which is sometimes a conflict point. And then Beacon Street continues on as the rest of Beacon Street into the cycle track. But this section currently does not, the existing conditions do not have a cycle track as shown here. And the proposed change is bollard protected bike lanes in both directions, unidirectional car travel lanes, and some other space for either a parking lane or a right turn lane in some other configuration. Any comments on this section?
I have a comment. You're in my commute, so I have a lot of opinions.
That's good.
I just want to throw all my praise behind a bike lane coming from Beacon to Somerville Ave. Because protected or otherwise, because the traffic always backs up there. Hence the reason for this. And if you're coming up on a bike, there's like not really room to go forward. You go on the sidewalk, that sucks. If you have to stand there, you breathe in all the exhaust, and that also sucks. So just a way to get through will be really, really good. So really appreciate that.
I'm always trying to wiggle between the cars to get up to the front.
And like you hate it and they hate it.
It's all bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. One detail that I wanted to note about here with potential parking on the west side. I know we've had concerns about the conflict of cars turning on to Oxford before. Pull it up for reference. It was narrowed somewhat as part of the Beacon project, but there often is a conflict between a car thinking it's going straight-ish down here versus a bike attempting to continue along Beacon Street here. So if there is parking, whatever the city can do to make this gap narrower would be great. And if there is parking on the west side here, I hope that is stopped well short of the intersection to give perhaps even more daylighting than usual.
Could this whole section be converted to like a mini roundabout as part of this?
Oh.
Because I agree that section is off. It's a mixing zone. It's awful.
Hmm. It's an interesting idea. Don't know.
I feel like
Offhand,
with the bridge there, there's not maybe not enough surface area.
Yeah, I'm talking about, once just after the spot of the intersection only.
so like just like literally after the bridge and sort of just before the split between Oxford and Beacon, Alex.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Hmm.
Because I don't think you have that same problem at the Somerville Ave Beacon intersection. Nearly as bad as this, which is truly a mixing zone where you're kind of having to take the lane oftentimes so that somebody doesn't right hook you when trying to get
Yeah.
through have.
Right. I mean, really what I always feel, if I'm coming from Mossland, I make the left onto Somerville Ave and then right to get onto Beacon. My instinct is that I would really want a center line bike lane to get onto the Beacon Street cycle track, which would not be easy to implement, to your point, you know.
Yeah. I don't think there's a good solution here other than forcing either traffic control something or changing the structure of the intersection entirely.
Right. And I think an interesting point, I mean, it's great, like the addition of the protected bike lanes in both direction might fix this, but right now, if you are coming from the Beacon or Oxford side going to Somerville Ave, technically that right lane, you can technically go in either direction. There's no prohibition that says you have to turn right on that lane. So
Oh,
cars,
that's true.
sometimes cars can and do make the left from the right lane.
Yeah, that's true. Mm.
So that would have to be officially prohibited, I think, as well. Well, it wouldn't be an issue because there'd only be one lane in each direction. So.
Cool. I'll include the roundabout idea for the minutes and emphasize the intersection as a concern overall. And then the last street in the project area for this one was Mawson Street. Here for reference. So unlike the other streets, it is designated for a neighborway rather than protected bike lanes on the bike network plan. Making it safe via low volumes and speeds rather than via separation. And making it always two-way for bikes, even if the street is one way. For context, during the bike network plan, Mawson was one of several streets where committee members had concerns that the current volumes were high enough that members felt it might be a challenge to make it safe enough for bikes to comfortably use as a neighborway. And it looks like the city's proposals are acknowledging that there's currently too much traffic, and so they would significantly reduce it in some way via options including reversing the direction of Mawson Street, restricting turns onto or off of Mawson, or making Mawson the dead end. So this depicts Mawson approaching Elm with Cedar Street on the other side. In this example, what it could potentially look like as a dead-ended street with bike access around either side.
Wow.
Any comments or reactions to this?
I love the dead end idea.
Yeah, I also really like the dead end. It seems like it'd be very successful at its goals of reducing volume, and could even be a place for some green space or in Quickville, a little pop-up parklet of some kind.
I feel like even I love the dead end, but even if there was just at the Somerville Ave exit, if there was just one lane of traffic, right? Because right now cars can turn both left and right on Somerville Ave. Is that true? Right. I feel like the fact that you have two, like people angle to put their cars there makes it tough. So as a lesser utopian option, even if there was just like one turn option for cars, that would even make it more comfortable.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I like the contingency thinking. I too like the dead end would too be my preference. Cool.
Anything else on this project in general? If not, we'll move on to the next one. And thanks for your patience, folks. I know we do have 3 of these projects to go through.
If there's any painting, it should totally match the fish store across the street.
I love that, and I'm officially including that in our suggestions.
Nice. Yeah. I was gonna just ask one point, at this point, Greg and Viola, are we just providing feedback? Is it a little too early for, kind of more formal letter or something of that format? So,
No, it's not too early. Yeah, at this stage, I think anything is, or most things are up in the air, so if there are particular things shown here that we've discussed that you like, then I think the committee can definitely submit a letter, or if there are other things you don't see that you would like to see, that can be included as well. But I think that it doesn't hurt to have formal committee comments.
cool.
And I'm doing my best to capture everything in the minutes that will hopefully be very easy to turn into formal feedback.
Yeah, so I think our typical procedure would then, if the timing of feedback would allow, we would take the feedback from the minutes here tonight, turn that into a formal letter that we could vote on sending next month. Does that sound like an appropriate plan?
I think I want to submit the feedback sooner, so
Okay.
Maybe at the end I can share the minutes, my screen of the minutes that I've been taking, and we can endorse that accurately represents our sentiment.
Sure. That sounds like a reasonable plan. Great.
Thanks, Ted.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
I see Western Pearl with the next one on here. So I can
Yes.
pull up some slides for that. So jumping into this, the general context of the project area is.
Just to make sure, Alex, did you still have a question? I see your hand is raised on Zoom.
Oh, no, thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for checking. Appreciate the facilitating. So for reference, the project area is the western half of Pearl Street. Pearl Street east of McGrath was previously reconstructed in an earlier project. And there is, this is designated for protected bike lanes in both directions on this part of Pearl Street. There are several other bike facilities in the area, and also some significant pieces of separation, both the train tracks and the grade around here. And jumping right into it, it looks like the design considerations that the city is bringing up, and where we could probably get the most valuable feedback, is around calling out that the street is relatively narrow. And so it looks like implementing bike lanes in both directions would mean either removing parking from both sides, or would mean removing parking from one side and making the street one way. And so the options shown here call out three options, three potential cross sections. The first two both achieve the bike network goal of protected bike lanes in both directions. And then the third option includes a bike lane in only one direction on here. And proposes to instead install a quick build protected bike lane in the opposite direction on Medford Street. Here's a reasonable summary of this, and I think the map showing the context of where these options would go was pretty valuable as well. Yeah, with that, let's open it up. I think it's a very interesting problem, and I'm very interested in people's thoughts on this. Alex?
Yeah, I think someone had meant this is not my idea, but someone had mentioned it last time, a strong support for option 2 around making sure that out of concern that without any parking, people would either more than likely try to park inside of the curb separated bike lanes. With that in mind, option 2 seemed like it would be most resilient to not having that happen. And so I think that, and I agree. I really agree with that argument, and so that's why I think option 2 is probably the best if we want to maintain safe non-blocked, separated bike facilities.
Can I ask a question and provide a comment? I really love the idea that was floated 4 years ago of closing Medford to car traffic. And was sad to see it reopen to cars after the construction. And I think that vehicle travel is way too fast through there. Which I think some of this will mitigate, I'm sure, but, why does option 1 allow for potentially closing Medford Street Bridge to vehicles, but not option 2? I don't really understand that.
I believe in option 2, Pearl Street would only be one way, so you have to accommodate
Oh, gotcha.
the another route for the
Gotcha,
vehicles
gotcha,
going.
gotcha. Okay. And the other thing is, I love going to Sarma, living nearby, and I don't have to drive there, but a lot of people do Uber, drive, however they get there. It's very popular. So I think as much as I like option 1, it doesn't work well for going there. And it's like a major, draw.
It's the only thing in Gilman Square.
Like people come from all over the place to go there, so, kinda, I don't think it's going anywhere, fortunately, so.
And can you clarify the Medford Street Bridge? Is that the stretch between Pearl and
Going up
Walnut?
to Walnut. Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, the bridge is Medford Street to like where the community path is.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, Pearl Street to the community.
The other thing is about that bridge is that like crossing at the path there is really treacherous and would love to see less vehicles up there. So I don't know, I'm conflicted
Well,
about
do a lot
my,
of cars go from Pearl and then take the sharp turn up Medford? Or vice
Not
versa,
very
go down
often.
Medford and take a sharp turn?
most of they're going about 50 miles an hour from Pearl up Medford. Or
Sure.
coming off of Pearl, continuing on Medford. Coming down.
Yeah.
The sharp turning often. I won't do that much. but-
I'm curious to hear folks' thoughts on like various potential alternatives in the area. So I guess to what extent Medford Street serves as an alternative for the relevant parts of Pearl Street. I know for me, I was trying to think through what destinations someone would be going to when they're biking on Pearl. And I think in some cases they will be biking towards East Somerville, in which case like the Gilman neighborway going underneath McGrath is a good alternative if you can get there. In other cases, relatively soon, people might be actively trying to get to McGrath as the bike lanes are built in, and in the not too distant future, hopefully, will become much nicer bike lanes. And in that regard, if you're going south on McGrath, Medford Street does connect with it reasonably soon. If somebody's trying to go north on McGrath, I think Pearl Street might be their preference. And so I didn't have a super strong recommendation, but one of my takeaways was that to me it feels like the Skilton / Gilman neighborway is useful to connect to, and so kind of this section of Pearl Street benefits much more from bike lanes to connect from Skilton on over to whatever facilities end up on Medford and beyond. The bike lanes further east would probably be a lot easier to find alternatives for as needed. Now, unfortunately, I assume that this section is also where parking would most be in demand, thanks to being near Sarma.
I second that though, getting to the neighborway is hard, is something I still do. I prefer that over maybe staying on Pearl. But getting to it right now is really hard, and making it a safer connection would be really great.
Yeah. That would also allow sort of the Medford Pearl piece to kind of replace transiting Winter Hill if you don't want to go uphill by bike. Because you have Skilton and the Walnut neighborhoods, and eventually McGrath connections.
We also don't know
Counselor?
what's happening in Homans right now in the future. I mean, there's going to be something there,
Yeah.
hopefully.
It won't be dirt forever.
So, you know.
Counselor Burnley, did you have a question or a point?
Oh,
Your hand
so
raised.
many. Wait, am I visual? I can't see myself.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, there
we
I
see your
am.
video.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. I hid my video because I didn't want to see myself, and then I couldn't see myself, and here we are. So just a couple points. I have more questions, but I'll save those for the end. You know, to respond to some of the things, I definitely feel as though Sarma is a treasure of Somerville. I've been there. They have excellent cocktails. They have an amazing menu. They will give you things that seem like they're coming out of a fairy tale. I once had, I don't like absinthe, but I once had some Turkish absinthe there because I didn't realize what it was because it was in Turkish. And it came in this bucket of ice, and it was this little vial that came out of this bucket of ice, and it was amazing to look at. Not great to taste if you don't like absinthe. Point being, Sarma's amazing, and they will live without that row, in my opinion. And I would rather to maximize safety as much as possible on that street, given that it is one of the hearts of Somerville biking, in my opinion. But I live in Magoon Square. But if you're anywhere in this area, you're cutting through these streets to get there. So I think I'd rather Medford Street remain a space where folks can get through if it allows Pearl Street to be both ways, either on both sides of the street or on one side of the street, whatever makes it work. I also want to ask more generally, because we have covered a number of plans tonight, if the committee is hoping to have a recommendation on each of these plans at some point, or if there's, you know, we're not wedded to having an idea on all the plans, or if it's like a process to get consensus, et cetera.
Thanks, Counselor. My understanding of the process is that we're hoping to give as specific a recommendation as we can tonight at this phase of feedback, and we can follow that up as needed. So it may be that the outcome for this specific project is that we do come to a consensus on a specific recommendation, or it may just be that we raise our various concerns and hope to follow up on them later.
Quick follow-up, thank you for that. But just to be clear about the other projects we've discussed, we're not necessarily hoping to have a recommendation for each of these tonight, right? Or go ahead.
I believe we originally had been hoping to be, and that was an ambitious goal. Actually, good question for mobility. Given the timing, what are there any projects that we could give feedback on at a future meeting?
Tom, we missed most of what you just said.
Oh, I was wondering, given the time, if anything on the rest of the agenda or in the remaining project of West Broadway is something that could wait until next month's meeting.
I would say West Broadway cannot. That's so Elm Beacon and West Pearl, we're still at the very beginning of the design for those projects. West Broadway, we are wrapping up design. We're in the final kind of period of community feedback. And I know the committee shared feedback on that project previously, but I think that if you have any final feedback on the updated design, that if you want to submit a formal letter, you should try to share that feedback tonight.
Okay. Thank you for that context. Given that, if it's all right, we'll hop over to West Broadway. My suspicion is that there will be less to discuss. as we've already given some feedback, but let's focus on that if it's time sensitive. Thanks for your patience, folks. So changing gears, we are now looking at West Broadway overall. Running from A. Wharfbrook Parkway on the left side here through just shy of Holland itself. The roll plan is up here, and I will zoom in significantly. And somewhere in here, I have response to our previous feedback. Sorry, I don't have that quite handy. But I'll mention some areas from the previous feedback. Members were excited about protected bike lanes in both directions. Had some concerns about one section where there is not a floating bus stop. And the initial plans had stopped somewhat short of Teal Square, and committee members had asked that mobility extend the plans into Teal Square to connect to existing infrastructure on Holland as much as possible. With that, let's open it up. Would love to get comments or reactions from folks to the plan overall, or a sense of if we think the updates adequately address our feedback from the previous cycle.
Hey, Lena here. Just as a West Somerville resident, I love it. And it's gonna make a big difference. Right now, biking on West Broadway is so unpleasant that I basically circumnavigate our city. Like I go out on the Greenway and go around MS Ave. But it's a crime because Holland is so great. And, you know, it's West Broadway is just so bad. So this is gonna be great. And I really would encourage, I'd like to at least hear why Teal has been repeatedly not included in this and in the Holland Street part. I know it's like a really bad intersection, but that's also why we really want it to be part of one of these or its own thing. So I'd like to hear about that. But other than that, I just really love it and it looks great. I'm going to be really psyched to see it. Thanks.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about Teal. Mobility would love to redesign Teal Square and look at that. The level of work and like curb realignment and changes, like new signal equipment and all of that is outside of the scope and the funding for this type of project, which is just a surface level reconstruction. So it's just street and sidewalk. So we're not touching utilities in this type of project. So that is really the big reason why we're not able to do Teal. It's a much greater level of effort.
Follow up really quick. Is it on the table? Is there plans for it? Because it really feels like all the infrastructure is closing in on it. You've got Broadway, East Broadway coming, you got Holland coming up. Now you got this amazing design on West Broadway. Like, I think all eyes are going to be on that intersection now more than ever, especially if everything around it is better than it. So just curious, I know it's not going to be included in this or other things, but is it on the radar for like a project, or does that need advocacy or what?
It's certainly on the radar. I mean, continued advocacy doesn't hurt. There's no formal project at this time, so no timeline, but I can say that it's definitely on the radar.
Thanks.
One question that I had, this is from the other slides posted on here. It looks like I was curious about bikes continuing eastbound on Broadway. It looks like the design here has them first go down Holland and then wait in a bike box here. I was curious if mobility has any reaction to that design versus an opportunity for bikes to continue straight on Broadway. But overall, I was very appreciative of the project being extended to meet up with Holland.
So the intention with this design is that a cyclist either has the option to, as you said, Tom, continue in the bike lane to the bike box and then kind of re-enter Broadway on the pedestrian signal, or take the lane if they feel comfortable approaching Teal Square on Broadway. And there is not really an option that we considered safe where you would re-enter the through lane kind of like midway through Teal Square. It's just gonna be flex posts, so you know, if somebody wanted to do that, they could. But there will not be a like continuous lane across Teal, if that's the question.
Isn't that because we're not making signal changes, Greg? And so it would need like a bicycle signal to do that safely.
So,
you have the right
yeah,
turn lane.
there is the right, yeah, the signal timing in Teal Square is not changing, so the right arrow will be on at the same time as the through arrow, so it is it would be a conflict between the right turning vehicles and like a through moving bike that is to the right of those vehicles. So this option allows people to avoid that conflict. But
Got it. So the idea is that even though there's some indirection that allows bikes to avoid or minimize conflicts without signal timing changes.
Right, but yeah, but if somebody, you know, is comfortable taking the lane and going straight to the intersection, that certainly they can do that too.
Makes sense. Cool. Any other reactions, comments? And I'll also say just the general reaction is folks being happy with the design without specific concerns. If anyone is feeling that, that's useful to hear as well.
I have a comment / request, I guess, or mostly a request.
Okay.
It's me, Willie. Hi. Yeah, I was actually going to ask something very similar to what Lena was asking, but in a different way, just because I think government brain is like very word specific. So is there any like let me say this the right way. Is Teal Square in the 5-year capital improvements plan? And if you don't have that information on hand, what would be the best way for me to request that information in this meeting with like some notes or like hearing type thing, or like ask for like a written request of information around it?
I think that if it is in the 5-year plan, it should be public information. But I can't say off the top of my head if it is included or not.
Okay, I will try to check, and if I can't find it, I will ask in some other official way.
Yeah, Councilor Burnley, on our level, we don't have access to any more information about the capital improvement plan and where it is at. Like what they're working on now, besides what's already up on the web.
Okay, yeah. So, but that's helpful to know. So I appreciate you answering. Thank you.
May I point out it's 8 o'clock and I will actually have to leave, which means like no access to the owl.
Right.
So Ted, I don't know. If you're closing,
Yes, would it be all right if I, yes, for the minutes, I would have the final summary, not individual comments. I would like the committee to briefly vote to endorse an overall statement regarding West Broadway. Let me share my screen with a proposed comment. And hopefully that's all right if we can wrap up very briefly with that. Just wanted to make sure that I'm capturing the overall sentiment of folks' reaction on West Broadway, since we're most want feedback. My proposed statement, hopefully folks can see this, is that we enthusiastically express our support for this project, and we encourage the city to follow up with a project to address Teal Square itself.
Yeah.
Are folks
Sounds good.
comfortable with that statement?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Given that, I propose a motion endorsing this overall statement. Do we have a second? Seconded by Ted. All members in favor, please say aye, raise your hand, otherwise make your vote no.
Aye.
Right. The motion passes. Thank you so much, folks, for bearing with us. And huge thank you to Ted for stepping in to chair after I had a family emergency. And I will hand it back over to Ted to adjourn for the night.
I will add just before we jump off these projects, I think the West Broadway and Western Pearl both have surveys that are open right now, so they will, I think, close before our next meetings, but all members are welcome to share your individual feedback via the survey or any of our public events.
do I talk about them?
And yeah, Ted, if I could quickly, before you close the meeting, we won't run through all of the city update, but just wanted to let everyone know that next month, if I can find share screen, we will be meeting in a different in-person location. So we will be at the City Hall Annex. Everyone can see my screen. And that is on Evergreen Street, the star up here. And here's where we are in the Central Library. So don't come here next month. If you're coming in person. We will be at the Annex, same time. Not entirely sure what the door situation is, so it's possible it may be locked. We'll obviously be letting people in up until the meeting starts, but if you arrive late, you might just need to shoot us an email. So we'll be checking, and then we'll still have the Zoom option as well.
Sounds good.
So that's the key information. The rest of this, we shared the slides. It's just project updates.
Cool.
Ted, if you're
I'm
talking, we
but not
cannot hear you.
him.
It's not even on mute. No.
Weird. Microphone is dead.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Cool. So a few quick announcements. We'll table the discussion of sub-team organization. That also gives some people a little bit more time to fill out the survey. Thank you to those of you who did. If you haven't, please take a minute and fill it out. that'll just kind of give us a sense, but I think people are largely in favor of what we had proposed in terms of teams. And the other announcement is that to kind of update our communication and distribution policy, I think the plan is to sunset all these subs to sunset our Google group going forward, likely by the beginning of December. We do have, in addition to all of the members of the committee, we do have a bunch of Somerville community members on that list, and we want to give them ample time to join the appropriate mobility newsletters and such. So we'll send out official notification of that and go over the communication policy again in next month's meeting. Is there anything else as a last minute announcement, Viola or Greg, you wanted to add about that, or did that more or less cover?
I think that covers it. You know, as we've been talking about, we've been learning more about the sort of formal communication processes, and the committee cannot email a quorum of other committee members. And so with the current Google group, with everyone being on it, that is a quorum. So from here on out, if you're sending direct emails to committee members, it cannot reach quorum unless it's via like BCC. So for subcommittees, no problem sending emails to each other.
And
For
it's also-
announcements, a meeting invite, BCC.
Announcements can be sent, but you cannot reply. There cannot be any like communication,
Feedback.
like conversation, feedback, discussion, however you want. That would have to be available to the public. So in order to avoid any of it, that's, you know, the current Google group is just too conducive to doing that. And in the future, like all committee is done through the individual emails, BCCs. And next time we can talk a little bit, you know, give a little bit more instruction, but it's always safe. The safest is to send email to the officers or to us directly, the liaisons.
And as we sunset that, Viola and Greg, can we send out maybe just a list of, for the non-committee members who are on that list, who are on our Google group, could we maybe just send out here are all of the OSPCD or related, you know, listservs or newsletters you can subscribe to instead?
Sure.
So people get the info. Great. Thank you. That's everything on my end. So on that note, I think we can adjourn, and I thank you so much for all of your great feedback and participation and insights tonight. So happy biking through November, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I don't see you before then.
Thanks, Ted. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Night.